welcome. I'm Jessie Walters with Charles Rutenberg. I'm here today with
Shannon Minch, and I'm from Charles Rutenberg also.
Yeah, and we're here talking about the market and the updates and what's going on in our community, Tampa Bay area. So what have you been seeing a lot of? Have you been seeing a lot of buyers or sellers, or what have you been seeing?
I feel like at the beginning of the year, there was a big uptick in sellers. And honestly, in the last month or so, I've been getting a lot of buyers coming back into the market. So
are your buyers from Florida? Are they, what are you seeing? Like, are they out of state or are
a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too.
A little bit of both. I closed 6 transactions this last month.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it. And so 2 of them were people that were just, moving in the Tampa Bay area.
Right.
So one house we sold in Wesley Chapel. They bought acreage in Wesley Chapel. Another one.
That's an anomaly. Acreage in Wesley Chapel, right?
Yeah, 1.8 acres in Wesley Chapel is what we ended up closing
when you
on.
drive through Wesley Chapel, I drove through there on Tuesday, and it was like
community
new construction,
And that's what they had. They had new construction,
Yeah.
and the houses are just on top of each other. So they really wanted some extra space.
Right.
So they ended up buying 1.8 acres, 10 minutes away from the community that they were in.
Oh, that's good.
And then I had another one that was Safety Harbor, where we closed, and then he moved up to Wesley Chapel.
Oh, that's good.
So I've got a lot of moving within the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, moving around, kind of lateral.
As well as people coming in from out of state. So
yeah, I've got probably, I want to say like 3 that are from, that are like, we need to buy right now from out of state. Then I've got like 3 that are like 3 or 4, just like, if, we're going to retire here. They're like on auto. The one has been on the auto email for like a year. And they're like, well, we find this. And the thing is, when you narrow down those searches for exactly what they want, and they're so peculiar, it has to be this many square foot, it has to be, you can do that with our MLS searches. We can narrow it down so you can get exactly what, emailed to you and everything. So you want a 3-bedroom, you want a 2-bath, you want a pool, you want on a half acre, you want, and then you're like, and then it can all happen. I'm like, so I like to do like, put it all in and then see exactly what the price is. And then they tell me the price that they want to buy. And it's like, shoot, here's the house right here. It's only $500,000. You know what I mean? And then the house, they're like, well, I only want to spend $325,000. And I'm like, forget it. So, but yeah, there's a lot more for sale right now, but the inventory is still low. So, So when buyers see something, they still have to make the move of, let's put that under contract or let's put an offer in. It's so funny because it's not funny, but the news portrays everything being like, oh, there's reductions, everything's going down. And so I do get like the low offers in on the ones I've been listing and stuff that I've been getting, like you'll have good offer, and then you'll have like a couple really low offers, and the agents, I don't know. I'm always like, don't write it up if it's really low, because no one's desperate. If they're desperate, I'll put motivated or something.
And that's not, just not this market yet.
Yeah,
like, I don't think most of our people are in a place of complete desperation.
Yeah.
Out of the 6 that closed in March, 3 of them were listings. I only had 1 that we did not get full ask on. And that one was the one that needed the most work. It was my house in Safety Harbor that I just said. He moved to Wesley Chapel. But it needed a little bit of work. The house was built in the 70s. He had done some updates, but he hadn't owned it very long.
Yeah.
And so we did have to adjust the price a little for that one. But the other 2 sold at full ask pretty quickly. So the market's still hot.
Yeah. So we were talking about when we were talking about the news and how the news is portraying that the market's not hot and that people are reducing, or they're saying price, like you were just saying, price adjustment. That's what that's what they'll say, that they had to readjust it. Most of the time it's because your seller had that dream price. I usually say, like, I'll come in and I'll say, oh, your property's worth, say for instance, 500. And they'll go, well, do you think I could get 520? And I'm like, well, we can put it out for 520, but this is what it's probably going to appraise at, is around 500. Okay, let's put it out for 530. I'm like, this property keeps going up as we're sitting here. It just went up 30,000. And then I feel like I'm negotiating to get it down. Like, I'm actually can we get it down to 515? So I'm not even buying the house, but I'm pre-negotiating for these buyers who.
Well, you want them to have a realistic expectation.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing I like to kind of talk to my sellers about is I like to say to them, what is your goal? Is your goal the most amount of money, or is your goal to sell quickly?
Yeah.
And if their goal is to sell quickly, then I'm going to price it pretty aggressively, or at least I'm going to suggest that they price it aggressively, and we kind of figure out what that looks like. If their goal is to get absolute top dollar, especially in a market like this where stuff is sitting a little bit longer than it was, you may not have all of the multiple offer situations that we had, let's say 6 months ago.
Right.
Then, we might start a little higher and then slowly, adjust the price down if we need to. And just give them a little bit more time. I always say, let's make a deal. So if I list your house, if I tell you 500 and you tell me 530, and I say, if we don't get at least 1 or 2 showings in the first week, then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about it, and you're gonna have to reduce. Do we have a deal? And if they're like, well, no, we know it's gonna sell for that, then I go, I hope it does. I mean, I obviously I don't make much more, but if I sell it higher, I make more money. You know what I mean? So, but that's not my motive. My motive is to get your house sold in the quickest. Period.
Yeah. Time is of the essence. Yes. Yeah. So with that being said, I went on a listing appointment, and I did not get the lot. Well, went on 2. One I was super. It's so funny because I knew I wasn't going to get it, so I started being very sarcastic, which I'm not. It wasn't mean sarcastic, but the customer just said, I don't know if I was talking about this before in here, but the customer was saying, like, what are you going to do for me? So, as an agent, you're like, well, I'm going to market this, and it's going to be on Zillow, it's going to be a hot pad, it's going to be on, and you go through the whole list of realtor.com, and I'm going to have a virtual tour, and I'm going to have, aerial shots, and I'm going to do it for this much commission. You really put on your thing, and I've been doing it this long, and blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, well, you're going to do all that for me? He says, what aren't you going to do for me? And then I knew I probably don't have the listing. So I said, well, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to clean your windows. I'm not going to vacuum this place. I'm not going to clean anything in here at all. I'm not going to. So I started going through this whole laundry list of and I'm not going to shampoo the carpet. I'm not going to paint anywhere.
I'm not walking your dog.
Yeah. I started going through this whole laundry list. Well, he was like very, very serious with him and his daughter. Now they love me. I love them. They're awesome. Mm-hmm. But so I did get the listing. He started to kind of crack, and he laughed, and then because I went through the huge list, and anyway, so I got that listing. But then I went to another listing, and they said they were going to have loads of people in for the interview. And then so anyway, because we were just talking about dog, you like this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I said, so they're talking to me, and I'm trying to act professional, which I am professional, so I'm not trying. But anyway, long story short, I see a dog out their window running, and it's a little Yorkshire Terrier, and I'm like, do you have a dog? And they go, no. And I said, there's a dog loose, and it's under your car. And I'm like, is this a busy street? And they're like, well, no, it's not that busy. Oh, the Yorkshire Terriers are neighbors. He's like 90 years old. And I go, so I just jump up. Yeah, I jump up in the middle of the interview. And this is probably why I did not get the job. I jump up, I'm chasing a dog, and I'm dressed, dressed up, wearing heels, running through people's yard. And but the best thing that happened was I saved the dog. Did not get the listing though. And then I came back in their house, I wiped my shoes off and stuff. But the homeowner just so it didn't sound too crazy, the homeowner did get up, and she chased the dog with me, and we got the dog back. But I'm professional on, if your dog, because mine's a Shorkie and it's a Shih Tzu Yorkie, and those little Yorkshire Terriers just take off.
That was my Schnauzer.
Yeah, they just, I don't know, little dogs, they have little dog syndrome, they just take off and stuff. But anyway, so I did not get that listing, and then they overpriced it.
But you saved the dog.
I saved the dog, and they overpriced it like $60,000. And I was still like, well, I guess I could.
That's why they went with that agent, because that agent told them an obscene number.
Yeah.
That was not realistic just to get it, and then it probably did not sell anywhere near that.
Yeah, so I don't lie about what I think it's worth.
Same.
And and if you do, and then you get the listing, then you pump the people up, and then you have to deflate them as you tell them. it's not, or when the appraiser gets there and they said, well, I don't care if it doesn't appraise, they're going to bring the money. I'm like, this is so not 2022. This is 2023. So
not a realistic expectation.
Yeah. So did not get that. So it's very sad though. They might call me still, cause when someone lies to them, they usually call you back and go, well, you just seem like you were honest. And the only thing I lie about is my age. I'm not going to lie about how much your house is worth. Yeah.
I don't lie about my age yet. I just am like, ugh.
I don't know why. I don't know. I always feel like people feel sorry for you when they find out how old you are. It's like, how old is your car? Oh, I liked it until I found out how, but anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But we have, so I have some pending listings and at 10826 La Quinta. That one is pending. That one was just a little teeny 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom villa. That was in Newport Richey, like River Ridge area in Pasco County.
Was that the one that needed updates on the inside? It was like original?
Yeah. I always say, if you buy a house like this, why don't you just throw like an 80s party or a 90s party? I mean, you have all the, before you rip it all out.
Everyone shows up looking like Flashdance.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that. But this, you know what though? This kitchen is so, it's original obviously, but it's immaculate as far as, because they would only stay like a month or so out of the year. Like they would come stay and then lock it back up. I mean, look at that. Do you see that washer dryer?
Yeah.
I mean, it's old. It's old, but it works,
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you can get some instant equity in it if you remodel it on make it modern but on a budget.
Right.
Be reasonable about your updates and you can get some instant equity in something like that. So
see the pool picture? I deleted the pool picture off because I got a call from someone in the neighborhood and they said that it doesn't have a pool and you have a and I don't know how that pool picture just showed up again, but I swear that Zillow grabs that picture and you go to delete it and you can't delete it.
I think you have to go into Zillow specifically to delete it. You can't just do it on MLS. It's gonna keep it as like all the past data.
Yeah, because realtor.com, it took it off. So that picture right there, it's like it doesn't come, that community pool and center isn't part of the HOA. So she said, that's very deceiving. And I was like, who is this? Well, you called me up just to tell me the one picture. Just kidding. Who are you? Do you live in this neighborhood? Yeah, she wasn't even like the head of the HOA or anything.
It's like a nosy neighbor that noticed it.
Yeah, she's like, I just went through that. But
that's good. It helps you because people would think it does go there.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So I have another listing, 9334 Zero 52. Now, on this one, so commercial listings, you put them on, they go on Zillow, the same thing, MLS, they go. They go on to all those, and it's an automotive shop. It's on 052. And with this one, for some reason, it's like 0.34 of an acre on this. It's commercial. So I got a call yesterday, and again, he's like, is this 0.83 of an acre? And I said, or anyway, basically, I was like, no, it's 0.34. And then he said, well, this other LoopNet, the commercial listing site, says the wrong. So like you said, I had to go back to the source. So I tried to adjust it myself, wouldn't let me. So I had to send them an email. It's the wrong acreage on there. And you would think that if it's that big, that someone would already scoop this thing up. It's 450,000, has a business, tire shop. It has an office. You could rent out the 2 front for office space and have your automotive in the back. It's right next to Dunkin' Donuts. So we have had, let's say, Dunkin' Donuts competition call in regards to ripping the building out.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So, last week. And I was like, yeah, go for it. So, but then, so that stuff though, when they do that, when they have like, anytime you get a call like that, it's not like a residential where you just show them the property and then the buyers are like, okay, they do all the comps of the area and like, the geographics and, all that stuff is it. And then when they start calling them the principal, not like the buyer, it means that they're, serious commercial people. They're literally.
They know the jargon.
Yeah. And I was like, which is good, but then they don't do anything like that knee jerk where I feel like, as an investor, you just go, yeah, let's do it. Where they have to make sure. But this one, like I said, you can see Dunkin' Donuts right next door. The high school is across the street, McDonald's across the street, Wawa's across the street. It's between Little Road. That's the back of Dunkin' Donuts there, right next to it. And it's between Little Road and Chicago Avenue. on State Road 52, and you can see the school and stuff. So you have all those high schoolers. If you did put like a coffee place in there, it would be good for high schoolers or fast food. But Taco Bell is right there too. So it's a great property. It's been a price adjusted. I was going to say reduced. It's been reduced. No, it's been price adjusted. So it's ready to sell to the right person. And there's a property next to it or close to it. They're already under contract, but their lot was a little bit, like I was saying, bigger than our lot. But they're already under contract. So I'm hoping that one flies out very quickly. And so I have some lots that are still available. I have one on Petunia. And like I was saying last week, I got to get some better aerial shots because the lots that I have listed, they've actually built some next to them, so you can kind of see the new construction and all that stuff. So it's actually, it looks a little better with seeing houses because it's hard to visualize basically. How big's the lot and what can I fit on there? Of course, those questions you can always call the county with that address and say, hey, what are the setbacks? And setbacks are how many feet from the front, from the backs, from the sides that you can build on, which will tell you how big your house square footage could be. So that's always interesting to find that out because usually it's 5 on the back, 5 to 10 on the sides, depending on which every neighborhood's different, but depends on which neighborhood's different.
Just depends on the county zoning.
Yeah, and then the front usually is I think 10 foot off the front, but it's always different, so it's always best to call. And then I have another lot, I want to say on Boyd. Is it Boyd? I always get this one wrong. I don't know. I think it's Boyd. Actually, did I get it right? Rod. Why can't I remember that? Yeah, so that one's still available too. And then I have some property, that one you don't hardly need to clear out anything to build on that one.
Which is nice because clearing gets expensive.
Yeah,
it's one of those costs that people just don't think about.
Yeah. I know I was talking to a lady the other day. She didn't think of impact fees. And then depending on what area, well, septic, or connection to your sewer, power pole, stuff. Are you building it yourself? You need a portalet on site, like all those extra fees and costs like that. They don't actually, I guess, put them into the equation. But if you get a new construction loan, then you do, because you're like, okay, what are we doing here? And then this one is 1.5 million commercial way. That one is commercial way is US 19 in, it's just another, basically a name for US 19 when you get to Hernando County. And that is just, so US 19 north of State Road 50, probably like 2 blocks from Weeki Wachee. So it does say Brooksville as the 34613, but they also say
practically Weeki Wachee.
Yeah, they all say Weeki Wachee too. So it would be good for. I've been contacted for townhouses, and I had one person who just wanted, because it's just under 20 acres, they wanted it for their own home.
What's the zoning on it?
Right now it's agricultural, so it has to be rezoned if you put anything different. But we're going to take a quick break, and everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back. We're talking about the market for 2023, and we were talking. I had all my predictions and my paperwork and all that stuff. Sometimes the analysts are correct, I guess, or they, it's kind of like
it's like a weatherman.
Yeah, or like
I got a 50-50 shot. Either they're right or they're not.
I brought like a crystal ball, like 8-ball before. And I was like, one of the, where you ask it a question, like, will the market crash? And I dressed up like a, well, it looked like more like a pirate. But anyway, I dressed up like and I was doing like the fortune to try to guess what the market was doing because I couldn't tell. And I was like, this would be great. Yeah. So, so there's no crystal ball to tell what's going on. But, what's interesting to me though, is they say that, there's going to be loads of foreclosures, and I'm reading that there's not going to be loads of foreclosures, So, have you seen anything on?
Yeah. So I'm a nerd, right? Like, let me just say that economics is my guilty pleasure. And so I do listen to a lot of economist podcasts and market stuff. And I come from the banking world. So these interest rates and bank closures, I try to keep up on all of it. So I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. It was on the market, and the episode was the big economic implications of the U.S. bank failures.
Oh,
and they had the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, Mark Zandi, on, and it was just so interesting. Mark Zandi's really good at breaking down very complex concepts,
right?
And making it reasonable so normal people can understand it. Yeah, sometimes people are talking and I'm like, are you speaking Japanese to me right now? What are you saying? No, he does a really good job of really breaking it down.
Oh, that's good.
And so between I think by now everyone's heard about, the Silicon Valley Bank, and we've had a couple other bank closures and stuff. And so it's made people really nervous. Mm-hmm. What he was saying is that after 2008, during that bank crisis, the big banks that are considered really, really, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. The banks that are really important to our economy. So our Bank of America,
the leaders of the industry, right?
Yeah, our Bank of America, our Wells Fargo, our Chase, those guys. Mm-hmm. After 2008, they were required to keep a much higher amount of reserves on hand. Mm-hmm. So those banks are actually doing really, really well. They're doing really strong. Right. And the smaller banks, especially the ones in kind of riskier sectors, which is what we're seeing with Silicon Valley and Signature Bank and that kind of stuff, they don't have to hold the same percentage of reserves. And so between their risky focuses and the fact that they have less money that they're required to have on hand, that's kind of what happened. But that the big banks are actually really, really strong, and looking very healthy, which is good.
Yeah, it is good.
He was predicting on that podcast, and again, who knows, right? Nobody has a crystal ball, but he was predicting.
I do have a crystal ball now.
You do? It may not tell you what to do with things. Yeah. It's just decorative.
It's like a joke one.
It's decorative.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a joke one.
But he was saying that the real estate market, we're probably going to not see a huge adjustment in. Mm-hmm. They're not predicting the bottom falling out like it did back in 2008. We may see no growth or very little growth. But where he did say we were going to see adjustments was going to be in multifamily and multifamily development, that the banks are going to be tightening down on lending, commercial lending, and it's going to specifically be affecting multifamily. It's going to be harder to get multifamily development loans and that kind of stuff. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So it may be a little harder to get, loans for triplexes, quadplexes, and up.
Right.
Usually duplexes follow kind of the same lending rules as single family homes.
Right. Yeah. It's like they're trying to, I guess kind of control the ballers of the, of the commercial world when it comes to multifamily, because they've grown and grown and rents are so high, and they can, if they, I guess they can control they're setting the rent, basically, because they're putting, the rentals are still at a low, there's hardly anything for rent. So if they actually build them or they put them up, they can control the rent in Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, if they have this new complex, because they're the ones, the apartment complexes were first right out of the bat. They were the ones with the most expensive rent, and then houses are individual, actual landlords. They saw the apartment complex is getting so much money. So they're like, well, we can get that much money too. Yeah, so it's kind of we're pulling them back in. We're going to make it a little harder for you guys to make money,
But yeah, I was saying that they're going to be harder to get loans. It's going to be more difficult. Essentially, they're going to be tightening the box that those people trying to get those loans have to fit into. And so it's going to be harder to pass that. So he said that was kind of the sector that people were going to see a higher adjustment than just standard residential and commercial in general. They said that we were.
Yeah. So when it takes off, like any market takes off, so it's always residential first, and always have like single family homes first, and then it kind of spirals out to condos and townhouses, and then it kind of goes. So you got your single family takes off, then you got your condos and your townhouses like right on the tail of the single family homes, and then you have because there's hardly anything available, then it spins off to the land and the commercial. Especially if money's free, or interest rates are really low, so it's almost free. Like back a couple of years ago, it was free money, And then the land, and then the commercial is, and so when you start to see, commercial is slowing down, land isn't selling, then it goes back uphill,
Right.
So that's kind of how I've seen it and stuff. So, but I haven't seen big drops. I know that the rentals are still on a like we were saying on here, it says Florida leads the nation with a 28% increase in average rental costs. An average tenant pays $1,218, which I haven't seen anybody paying $1,218. They're all paying at least $1,218, especially in apartment complexes and stuff too.
$1,218 what?
$1,218 is the average rental cost.
For what?
Yeah, I know. One bedroom. It's a one bedroom.
If that.
Home. Yeah. It's a one bedroom home with the view. I don't know. Buyers who cannot afford to house due to high income values will simply rent. As a result, it's not surprising that Florida has a highly competitive rental market. So what happens is, there was the shortage of homes to purchase. So people say, well, just rent a little bit longer. For instance, I had one that was new construction. They just bought it a couple of days ago, and great family, first time home buyer, and literally the American dream. He got here from India, married his girlfriend. They had a baby. There's the baby.
So cute.
Yeah, and worked here for just like 2.5, 3 years, bought their house, and then basically their rent, which they won't care if I talk about, their rent was $1,900 a month, a 3-bedroom in Hudson, in an apartment complex. And they said, well, we don't know if we should rent or buy. Well, anyway, let's just say this: when they went under contract and they gave them the days, we're going to move out, blah blah blah. They raised the rent to over the new home purchase rental, and they thought it was going to be $1,900. They're like, well, $1,900, we can afford it if we can find something close to $1,900. And then, of course, the mortgage was a little bit more. But when they actually got the rental increase from the actual apartment complex, it was higher than the mortgage payment. So they're like, thank goodness we bought this house. So they're pretty excited and stuff about their new home purchase.
Well, and it's so nice because at least if you're paying, let's say their house was $2,100 a month, right? I'm just throwing it out there, right? So if it's $2,100 a month and they were already paying $1,900 a month, then $1,900 a month is getting thrown away. You don't get anything for it.
Right, exactly.
But at least $2,100 a month, now you're building equity in your home. And later on, even if it's not your forever home, you turn around and you sell it, hopefully for a profit, because historically that's what real estate does, is it increases in value.
Yeah.
And so,
true.
now you have a lot more money and you have a big down payment for your next house.
Right. And so so when you were saying historically it does increase, well, back, probably it's almost 3 years ago now, it was always 4%. Like I could always tell people, it not guaranteed, but I can't write you a guarantee, but I'm going to say your house is going to go up 4% a year, historically for real estate in the state of Florida. It was always 4%. So you could be this sounds horrible, but you could be in a really crappy area and it'd be 4%. And you could be in a high standard area, it might be 10%. But historically, Florida, as an average, was always 4%. Always 4%.
Last few years have been crazy.
Yeah, and so that's why I say in the when I was looking at, actually I shouldn't call it out. I shouldn't call the person's. But anyway, I was looking at their projection of what the year of 2021 was going to be, and it said 4%. And I was like, seems like it's a little higher than that. Then it was like 25%. Yeah, then it went up to 8%. I was like, I think he might be wrong. Then I went back and I read all of his prior, and I was like, he was wrong here about this and wrong. So, not that I'm always right, but I was just kind of like, it seems like it's more than 4% this year, buddy.
Oh, it was crazy this past year.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I would say have been insane.
Yeah. And so, and we, like I always say, Florida has a beat to a different drum. people are always moving here. People are always retiring here. We have a lot of, we have beaches. We have, we have amusement parks. We've got Disney World. You know what I mean? All the things. We have Busch Gardens, Disney World, Adventure Island. We have waterfront
Tell you
dining.
what we don't have.
What?
Snow.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is about.
Yeah. We don't have ice either, unless you want to take an ice bath. That's about it. Yeah. So, yeah, we don't have those things. And yeah. Oh my gosh. I never seen so many videos of everybody falling on ice. I feel so bad because everybody's like, that's so funny. I'm like, it's so horrible to watch. Yeah.
It's brutal.
Because
as someone who's fallen on ice many times.
Yeah.
It is brutal.
Yeah. Because you're from Michigan? Right?
No. Washington. Seattle.
Washington. The ton. Michigan.
And Seattle's kind of funny because, it's cloudy all year round.
Yeah.
And the clouds actually insulate. So it doesn't get as cold in Washington State, at least in Western Washington.
Oh, wow.
As it does in like the Northeast and the Midwest and stuff. Like we have pretty mild winters.
What's mild? I'm a Floridian. What's mild?
we would go winters without snow.
Oh, okay.
In Western Washington, but then it's like super hilly and like mountainous.
Oh, wow.
And nobody knows how to drive on ice and snow there. And so it's a disaster. Like we'll get like 3 inches of snow and it's snowmageddon. And you think it's like a zombie apocalypse because there's just cars abandoned all over the sides of roads. People are like, I can't get home. I'm just going to park in the middle of the road and drive up and walk up the hill.
Yeah, I'll just walk up there.
Crazy.
Well, that's like in Florida when it rains, you're just like, okay, put your seatbelt on. I wish I had 2 seatbelts on. You know what I mean? Like a race car driver.
So scary.
Yeah, because I have to drive everywhere. So I had because I live in Pasco, so I had to drive out to Tampa for a closing. And we always have our stories of like when you get home, I'm sure you're like, you're never going to. So there was a guy driving and I felt so bad for him because he was elderly, but he was driving 40 miles an hour and we were on I-75.
Stop it.
And I was in the middle because I couldn't get past him and everybody's just zooming on me and I'm trapped. And I'm like, if I get rear-ended because this poor guy is on, he shouldn't be on here. But yeah, that was so one of my friends, lives in South Carolina, and she's like, this is like so Florida story of you right now. Cause she was on the phone on the intercom, Bluetooth in the car.
And you're like, what on earth are you doing?
Get out of the way. Oh my gosh. You have to be so careful. You can't, as realtors, we're always representing, we're always, you have to, it's not like we're going to run for Congress or something, but you still want to act professional. So I tell my friends, like they're screaming and I'm like, you can't do that. What if it's one of your customers and you see them,
Yeah.
Cause, I had that with it was a friend actually, and I just met her and I was on Suncoast and I forget what I was doing. It was totally my fault though. I admit it. And, I kind of swerved a little bit and I hear honk. And then she was like, at me. And then I look and I go, hey. And it was one of my friends.
Hey, Sally.
Yeah. How you doing? She was like this, and I'm like, hey. So I seen her again and we laughed and stuff, but it was kind of funny.
Or I have a friend down in Fort Myers who owns a screening business, which he's been slammed since the hurricane, right? Just rolling in dough. Well, his son, he has like an older teenage son that helps him out a lot and is his assistant.
Oh, that's
and
good.
He's of driving age. Well, he has like his business all over his Jeep, right? So it's got like his number and his company. When his son was driving the Jeep, he would get all of these like angry calls and text messages, like screaming about how he cut him off and blah, blah, blah. And he had to like have a very serious talk with his son about his driving etiquette because he's representing his dad.
I used to put the sticky, not sticky, the magnetics on the side of it. And then I'm like, I don't want, I guess everyone to know where you are constantly all the time. And then they also wreck your, they'll wreck your car with the
paint.
And stuff. So I was like, maybe I'll just get it on my back window. And my husband's like, why do you want to advertise? And I'm like, can I write it off? Can I do something if I'm driving around with this big logo on
You can write off the sticker.
Yeah, that's it. You can only write off the sticker. So I thought, because you know how they used to have people, they would pay them to like put the logos on their car and they would pay them so much. And that was a thing, probably about like 4 or 5 years ago. You could just drive around and make money doing that. Well, now they don't give you, there's no, accountant doesn't give you anything if you have a sticker and they don't go, do you have a sticker on your car? We're going to write off your whole car.
Yeah,
no, there's no such thing. So I just go, they know who I am. And that was another funny, so when I first started doing real estate, how everybody has the nice car. Realtors are known for having nice cars. So when you don't have a nice car and you're a realtor, this is what happens.
They think you're not successful.
Exactly. So one of my customers, Ven, he'll appreciate the story. He said, because I was driving a Kia Rondo, had that baby paid for, cost me $14,000. And I was like, had sippy cup slop everywhere. And I mean, from my kids, from just eating in the car, just disgusting. And, but the outside looked decent and stuff, but I didn't want to pick up my customers in it, even though I had a detail, but still. Anyway, this car, I was like, when I'm done with it, just throw it in the garbage. It's so bad. But I would pull up in it. And anyway, long story short, pull up in that car. People would say, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been? So I got a nicer car. And then I went and I had this listing. And it was a really nice listing. And some of the Bucks players are pulling up. And they got like the Mercedes, the square ones, were they?
The G-Wagon?
Yeah.
I love
he pulls up in a G-Wagon, and very, very nice. I forget which one it was. And everybody's like, you should have known because he's a Bucks player, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, their realtor pulls up. This is the whole point. Their realtor pulls up. He's like an older gentleman. He's real laid back. Yeah, I know. He's real laid back. And he's pulling up in like a 1990 Lexus. And I'm like, everybody's making fun of me for my car. But the Bucks guy, he was like, he sells to everybody. He sells all.
You're like, that realtor. Car is older than most of the Bucks players.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, and I went out, got a nice car. Yeah, he's twice as old as everybody. Well, actually, no, he's probably like 4 times as old as the Bucks player, the guy.
But the car is probably older than most of the Bucks players if it's from 1990.
Yeah. And I was like, gosh, like I was telling, like I told you a story before, but that was a story of why we have to have nice cars, because otherwise it just looks like you don't know what you're doing.
But if it's good enough for the Bucks, I mean, I guess maybe we don't. And it's just how we feel like we're projecting.
Yeah, so maybe I just keep my car and let the wheels, run off that thing. Just like, just wear it out, pull up, and everybody's like, she needs to sell this house. She's going to be super motivated. Look at her car.
Right.
Or borrow someone's baby.
It's a thing though.
Borrow a baby and be like, I'm just trying to work. I'm a working mom.
Just put a car seat in the back. You don't even need a baby. Just go to a car sale, get a car seat.
Yeah, that's
and then they'll feel bad for you and then but they'll also think that you're too busy with your baby
I gotta go.
to take care of their business.
I like this listing, but I've got to go because all my kids, I just started adopting kids so I could get listings.
I'm telling you, just invest in the car seats. It's way cheaper.
Yeah, it is. That is way cheaper. People are like, where's your baby at? It's empty. Or put like one of those dolls in there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Everybody sit tight. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. We're just talking about really random things today, but cars. We're talking about cars. And so you were telling me a story on brakes. Did you tell me this story on here?
Yeah. So when I first moved here, it's kind of a long story as to how I ended up with the RAV4. But I got a little RAV4. It was a new RAV4, but it was basic. It was like a low model and not very exciting or fancy. And so I traded it in because I was like, I'm going to get a bit of a nicer car. So I ended up I wanted the big Bronco, but it wasn't out yet. I had to get on a wait list. We just got our big Bronco actually like a couple weeks ago.
I love those. Yeah.
But I wanted the big Bronco and I couldn't get on it, or I couldn't get it for a couple of years. So I got a Bronco Sport. And there was a recall on the brakes on the Bronco Sport, and they don't have a fix for it yet. Oh. So yeah, right? So every time I would reverse out of anywhere and like kind of hit the brakes a little as I was reversing, it sounded like my car had a whale in the back doing echolocation. So I was like, all right, I've got this brand new car and it still sounds crazy. So whenever I would pull out of a driveway, I'd be at a nice listing. My buyer has a Mercedes, the listing agent's there. They've got a Mercedes. I'm in my Bronco. And every time I back out of the driveway, it's like, it sounded like a whale doing echolocation. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not okay.
Like, I can't go by the water. I'll call them all in.
And they were like, well, we live in a moist climate is what it was. And I'm like, my entire life, my entire driving life, I've been in Washington State and Florida. It's like arguably the two wettest climates in the country.
True.
And I've never had a car do this.
Yeah.
So I ended up trading it in and I got a Jag. And now
I love your car. It's a beautiful car.
I love my car too. I've never been a luxury car kind of person. And now I don't know that I'll ever go back.
I know it's so weird because people are like, I mean, some of the stuff I do and load into my car, I have a pretty nice car now, but some of the stuff I do, like I'll go, I can get those boards in there. I can get those and they're like, are you going to load that in that car? And I'm like, sure. So I was looking at the Broncos too. And if you get on a waiting list, they're actually, one of my friends did it and he paid a little bit less and he was telling me how to do it.
You pay way less.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
So you don't, the dealership actually, when they have like a launch of a vehicle, you get on the wait list and then the dealer isn't adding on, like there's a fee, like a dealership fee or something. And with the big Broncos, I mean, I think it's like $10,000 to $15,000.
Yeah.
And so, yes, like we were able to save like $15,000 on our
That's why I think, because we're in sales. So I always, it's so bad, but I always analyze everything that has to do with sales. Which I guess is kind of my nerd thing because I'm like, what, so you see the people with the Broncos, I'm like, they just went on that waiting list and now they're making $10,000. Like, and so they're just selling them and they have all of them on there and they must. So when you see just a random guy, brand new car and it's got like, not even 1,000 miles on it. And they're like, oh, I changed my mind. They're making like $10,000 on the sale.
Well, and they were pretty specific about it. So the Bronco was originally supposed to be mine. And so I was the name on the list. Yeah. But then I got my Jag
you're like
7 months ago. So I wasn't going to trade my Jaguar in. So I said to my husband, like, hey, apparently my Bronco's available to start building. Do you want it? Do you want to trade your truck in and you can get the Bronco? He's like, heck yes.
Yeah.
So
they're so nice.
Now it's his car. But I wasn't going to be.
Good. You can borrow it.
Right. But I wasn't going to be on the loan because I'm not on his truck loan now and he's not on my car loan. I don't know why. It just worked out that way. Yeah. But I had to be on the loan because otherwise it looked like I was, on the list and then giving it away and making money off of it. And they want to avoid that. So I had to be on the title and on the loan of the vehicle. So they try to do everything they can to make it so you can't undercut them.
Fair. That's good. Yeah, because I was wondering that,
I've heard it's a thing with like Ferraris too.
Yeah.
That if you get on the list and you get one and then you sell it, it's like frowned upon and they like won't let you get another one. You get like kind of blacklisted.
One of my friends, she's a realtor too, actually. Her husband, or ex-husband did import cars and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So she's got a Ferrari and she's got a Porsche and she has amazing cars and stuff. And so someone else was posting like, look at this one. Of course, they don't own it. They just saw it was a Ferrari in matte black though. It was so nice.
Mm-hmm. And then the Batmobile.
It literally looks like that. It does look like that. But and someone posted like, why does a Ferrari get a new design? And I'm like, are you guys serious? They're just so beautiful. They don't need to change when it's perfect. You don't need to change anything,
I'm not much of a car person. So I'm kind of becoming more, but before, like when I got my RAV4 and even when I got on the list for the Bronco, I'm like, can I get my paddleboard on the roof?
Yeah.
And can I fit my dog in the car?
Yeah.
And now, like, the RAV4 was also too small for my dog because he's a Great Dane. He's like 150 pounds. And now he's not even allowed in my car. My car's named is Charlene. So if you ever hear me talk about Charlene, it's my car. And Frankenstein is not allowed in Charlene.
Yeah, that's it. No dogs allowed. I know. I put towels down for my dogs. It's so funny because I'll load a 2x4 in there, but then my dog gets in. I'm like, you're gonna wreck my car with their nails and stuff, or the dog people that with the windows. They'll go to the window and scream. I'm like, oh no, that's probably something we should invent. Something to proof your window so your dog can't.
From dogs.
Yeah. There we go. New invention.
Wolfie's allowed in my car on But Frankenstein is not.
Yeah, because he's like 100 and something pounds, right?
Yeah.
You said? Yeah.
Well, if he's 10 pounds,
Aw.
Frankenstein is 150 pounds.
That's what my little one, I put him on my lap while I'm driving.
Me too. I know
Yeah,
I get
he's
yelled
cute.
at before.
Yeah, me
but
too.
He won't go anywhere else.
I know. We're like the dog moms. So, we were talking about a lot of people, when we were talking about the real estate and stuff and the foreclosures, we were talking about this on break too, that there's not a lot of foreclosures going on. And I think that's one of the rumors is that, I'm just going to wait because there's going to be so many foreclosures. They're not seeing foreclosures. They're saying there's no significant equity in.
And I wouldn't anticipate there to be right now just because the market's been so good, employment's been so good.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we're going to start to see those foreclosures come down is, and nothing happens in the market quickly. Like people think that the market adjusts fast, and that's just not the way it works.
Yeah, true.
But what we're going to see is again, they were talking about this on that same podcast I mentioned earlier, as companies are not going to have growth, most likely in the next quarter or 2 quarters, they're going to be slower to hire. They may do some layoffs, predicting further slowdowns and less production. And as unemployment starts to rise, and now we've got people with pretty high mortgages because values are higher and interest rates are higher.
Right.
So it's going to be harder for people to pay mortgages as, unemployment adjusts a little bit. So if we go into a little recession, we might start to see some, but they were not predicting a full market dropout.
Yeah, this is saying there's no threat of foreclosure crisis because of the amount of equity people have in their houses too. It's stronger than like 15 years ago when they had 2008, they had, a lot of people just, 0 down, 1,000 down, that no equity in their house whatsoever. And then they lose their house and they're like, who cares? This house is upside down. Or, that's what you'd hear all the time. House is upside down. I just want to get rid of houses upside down. Whereas now people actually have equity in them. And, some people, it's more popular to pay double payments now, turn your 30-year mortgage into a 15-year mortgage, stuff like that. And they also have the 3%, interest rates. So if you say you did lose your job or whatever, you're not going to find a payment that same exact price as far as a rental, as we were talking about before.
Correct.
Too. So it's cheaper to keep her. No, it's cheaper to stay in your house.
Well, and I think if you look back to pre-2008, one of the things that people were selling, and there's been a lot of regulation with the mortgages since that, because obviously there was no regulation really back then, and it really hurt us. But back then, people were saying, okay, this is the interest rate, but why don't we put you on an ARM? And an ARM is an adjustable rate mortgage, right? So by the time the ARM's ready to go up, you just refinance your house, and you won't have that higher interest rate. And they could actually never qualify for those higher interest rates when the ARM went up. It wasn't something that was required back then. Now the ARMs today, you have to be able to qualify for the high interest rate on the ARM, not just the low interest rate on the ARM. So it is different. But they got to a point where all of a sudden their payment was going to go up to something that they never qualified for. And maybe now they're in a job that's not paying as much, or they're working part-time because they got laid off and they couldn't find work. And now their payment's going to skyrocket. Oh goodness, let me go ahead and refinance. Well, you can't refinance because you're underwater. Right. So, because no bank was going to touch it. So they were in kind of this perfect storm, and that's where all the foreclosures really came from before. Whereas now, like you're saying, we've got tons of equity. We have low fixed rate mortgages because of the last, decade of low rates. Right. And so we're in such a different place than what we were going into the 2008 collapse.
Yeah, true. I know, because I think people, especially ones that got burnt, just kind of look at it as in, oh, here we go again. This is what's going on. But like you said, it's not the same exact thing.
It's not the same.
Yeah. So they have, the new construction is totally different. And they're saying, well, there's not enough housing for all the people that are coming here and moving to Florida. And that's why you're seeing so much new construction now. So literally, they're catching up with the lack of new construction, the housing supply. And that's the house that I just sold what was it, Monday or Tuesday? That house, the builder bought the interest rate down 1%. So when they're doing stuff like that, it's still making it very affordable for the new buyers. And a lot of millennials right now are buying too. So you have all those people that are just in that age group going, it's time for me to buy a house, so some of them, it's so funny because some of them are like, as far as customers, they'll say, it's time, I'm going to make it work, blah, blah, blah. And the other ones are like, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to afford this. This is more than my rent. This is, it's like kind of like, I'm going to show you how you can do it. Not to be, I guess, like a positive person, not just because, you have to the finances to back it up. But
that's our job, right?
Like, make it happen.
People think our job is to sell houses. Our job is not to sell houses. I say it all the time. My job is not to sell houses. The houses will sell themselves.
Yeah.
My job is to be solution focused.
Yeah.
So when all of this crazy stuff, we're problem solvers.
Yeah.
When all this crazy stuff is getting thrown at us in a transaction, our job is to say, okay, how do we get to the closing table?
Yeah.
How do we get this done? How do we keep everyone on the same page? Let's take the emotions out of the equation and let's just say, what is our problem? Let's come up with some creative solutions that are going to help get us to the goal.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so I have, speaking of that, I have a transaction pending right now with I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but let's just see. Open Door.
Okay.
So have you ever represented a buyer or a seller? Well, buyer or a seller actually with Open Door?
No, I have shown a lot of Open Door properties,
but
we've never gone under contract with one.
So when you're negotiating with them and everything, it's like it's pretty much like talking to a computer, even though it's a real person. They're not realtors.
They're reading a script.
Yeah, and they get paid a salary, not commission, as we were talking about before or whatever. But so when I was negotiating with them and stuff, I was asking them, let's just use this as an example because you're not supposed to disclose because it's under contract, so I can't say the exact amounts. But let's just say the house is $500,000 or it's $515,000 for sale, and I say, well, we'll give you $500,000, and they go, no, they counter and they say we want 505 as a number. So I go, so I say they want 505. Go back to my buyers. They said, well, ask them if they'll just pay all the closing costs. Let's go back. We'll just give them the asking price. We'll ask them for $15,000. They'll be at the 505. So 520 minus $15,000 in closing costs is 505. So it's exactly what Open Door countered to me. And I said, okay, so we'll do this and we'll just ask for closing costs. And then they said they countered 4,000 closing costs at a higher price. So I had to do like a little calculation, like worksheet for like,
you're like, that's not a deal.
Like, yeah, I was like, this
it's worse than what you already did.
Yeah, this equals this. You guys, your bottom line was this. This is what you just countered me, but now you went up $10,000 to, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing math here. And if you are a computer, I don't know if you're a real person or not, this should make more sense to you than what you just sent back to me. And so, so then I argued that but I didn't even tell my buyers because I didn't want them to be stressed out with me with my little calculation papers and taking pictures and sending them over the breakdown, how we end up at the same exact place. Well, anyway, I made it happen. And now I asked them for an extension on some, an extension, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're like, we can't input an extension 3 days before. It has to be, we can only input an extension 3 days before. It can't be. In other words, you know how like a normal sale, you go, hey, I think I'm going to need an extension over here. And you go, why? We're not closing for a week. Why would you need an extension? I go, well, I have this issue. And you go, okay, let me just, give a heads up to my sellers.
We'll sign some papers.
And we'll sign some papers. We'll let them know it's coming. Mm-hmm. This is better than the day or 3 days before.
Yeah.
Nope, they want it 3 days before. They want that surprise where I'm like, okay, so now I'm just sitting there waiting for my timeline so that I can enter it into this computer. So my point was realtors and taking that time and that negotiation and that, like problem solving, like you're saying, and all that stuff, we're not computers. I mean, we're going to mess stuff up sometimes. You're going to mess stuff up sometimes, but it's always going to be like in your best interest to have a realtor who's going to work for you to make sure that everything is falling precisely. Not a computer who you're just entering the bottom line number in,
There's so much that we do that we have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And like, for example, I had a listing that just closed last month and we found out, I felt so bad because they were so sweet. My sellers were so lovely. We found out that there was an open permit from a screen enclosure, right? The contractor never closed the screen enclosure.
Right.
And the lender was originally, we're just like, okay, it's a permit. Well, the lender started freaking out because they're like, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, we can't close. And I'm like, well, first of all, don't tell me what we can't do. Let's figure out a way to make it work for everyone.
Yeah, so you could never sell this house ever in the history of man now because there's one open permit,
Well,
right?
and
doesn't make any sense.
Sellers were willing to do whatever that needed to happen in order to close the permit. They wanted the buyers to feel comfortable and confident. And so we ended up putting a pretty large sum of money into escrow. It was held by the title company until we were able to get the permit closed.
Right.
But the lender was like, we can't close with this open permit. This isn't a clear title. And it specifically showed that nothing was owed to the contractor.
Yeah.
The contractor had been paid in full. There was no liens attached to the property. It was literally just an open permit.
Yeah.
And so that's not an unclear title, but it needs to be disclosed.
But it's because the notice of commencement. So when they do that with the refis too, the builder's affidavits, it's like one form, but then you got to find that contractor to sign that form, have it notarized, record it.
Well, and we actually needed I guess the contractor before them didn't take appropriate photos of something. And so we actually had to have an engineer come out and inspect the property, inspect the screen enclosure, and then sign off on it. And then the county would come out. So it did take a few weeks.
Oh, okay.
But
so that open permit didn't have the final then, right? It didn't have the final. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
The permit was started. It wasn't closed.
Because I always have them where they're open, being as there's a notice of commencement, there's a permit, but where the notice of commencement will flag it show that it's not really open. The permit will be closed, but the bank will want a builder's affidavit from the contractor to say that they don't own anything,
And we had all the documentation for that. It was just this permit wasn't closed out. And so
that's
the
clever though to put it in escrow. That's
was
smart.
like Chicken Little, like the sky is falling. We can't close for weeks. And we had no idea how long this was going to take. We have the buyers in an Airbnb paying astronomical prices.
Yeah.
We needed to get it done. You just have to be creative.
We got it done though.
They got all their money back.
That's awesome. Well, everyone have a blessed day. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.